My name's Colin, and I'm a big burly Scottish bloke studying engineering at university. This one semester, I ended up rooming with this wee Japanese lad named Hiro. Quiet little fella, but bloody gorgeous if I'm being honest. Slay with this silky black hair and big brown eyes that could melt your heart. I'd never looked at another guy like that before. Figured I was just appreciating good looks, you know? Hiro was dead obvious about batting for the other team, though. Always fussing over his appearance and dropping wee hints here and there. We hit it off as mates almost instantly, despite being so different. After classes, we'd grab food together, or I'd help him study while he straightened up my shite dress sense and terrible haircuts. The lad had exquisite taste, I'll give him that. One night, we were watching some crappy telly and munching away. Transition to dialogue. Thanks for keeping me company, Callum. I'd feel so lonely without you around. What do you mean? Thought you had plenty of wee friends. I do, but it's not the same, you know? And just like that, my bloody heart melted into a puddly mess right there on the grotty dorm floor. Hiro's words hung in the air while I desperately tried to play it cool. Lonely? Without me, my brain started racing damn near out of control. I cleared my throat. Well, you know you've got me, mate. We'll always be mates, yeah? He gave me one of those smiles that just lit up the whole bloody room. I know. It's just Hiro paused, chewing his plump lower lip. Sometimes I wish we were more than mates, you know? My jaw damn near hit the floor. This gorgeous little thing actually had feelings for me. A buck-toothed, brawny Scottish mug like me. I swear my heart stopped beating for a full 10 seconds. Hiro must have noticed the dumbstruck look on my face. Colin, you alright? I blinked hard, trying to gather my wits. Finally, the words tumbled out. Why, yeah, I'm good. It's just I always figured I was as straight as they come, you know. But lately, I reached over, taking his delicate hand in my calloused paw. Lately, I've started seeing you a wee bit differently, Hiro, in a more than mate's way. His eyes widened, but that beautiful smile never left his lips. My stomach did a dozen backflips. Is that so? He purred, scooting closer until our bodies were practically pressed together on the creaky dorm sofa. Hiro and I stayed up nearly all night, just talking and laughing like giddy schoolboys. Turned out we'd both been harboring secret feelings for a while, scared to make a move and ruin our friendship. Once it was all out in the open, though, it was like a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. I could finally admit to myself that, yeah, I absolutely fancied the wee shite. More than fancied him, if I'm being honest. The way his eyes crinkled when he laughed, how he was constantly fixing my disheveled hair, the intoxicating floral scent of his bloody, fantastic shampoo. I was head over heels for Hiro, and there was no denying it anymore. We stayed up chatting and cuddling until the first rays of morning sun peeked through the grotty dorm window. I'll never forget the way Hiro looked in that warm, soft light, like a wee angel sent straight from heaven just for me. From there, we started acting more like an official couple instead of just mates, holding hands, stealing kisses, sharing the same cramped dorm bed when we could get away with it. I'd never been happier in my life. Hiro helped me get my hair sorted and taught me how to dress sharper. I introduced him to my mates from the rugby team, who thankfully didn't give us too much grief over our relationship. Although they did make sure to enforce a strict no shagging in the locker room, Thomasy chanting it every time Hiro came around before a match. My rugged blue-collar Scottish family wasn't quite as accepting initially, but Hiro worked his magic charm on them too before long. Things were going so well with Hiro and me, I should have known the other shoe would drop eventually. We'd been practically inseparable for months, deliriously happy in our little loved-up bubble, until one night at least. It started like any other evening, and me and Hiro curled up on the sofa, watching crap telly and sharing a bag of salt and vinegar crisps. His tiny body was nestled perfectly against mine, smelling like that delicious floral shampoo as always. At one point I leaned down and stole a kiss, tasting that hint of vinegar on his plump lips. Hiro giggled, kissing me back harder. Next thing I knew, we were full-on snogging like a couple of starving animals. My callous hands roamed down his life frame as our kisses grew more heated, more desperate. I could feel Hiro's wee hands tugging at the hem of my shirt, silently asking to take things further. Part of me wanted nothing more than to rip his clothes off and have my way with him right then and there. But another part of me hesitated. See, despite all our snogging and groping, Hiro and I hadn't actually shagged yet, We'd been taking it slow, letting things progress naturally. I pulled away, pinning him with what I hoped was a stern look. Easy there, Tiger. You know, we don't have to rush into anything, right? Cairo averted his eyes, cheeks flushing scarlet. I know, it's just, I want to call him more than anything. He watched me intently, worrying that plump lower lip between his teeth. Don't you want me? Hearing him say that near knocked the wind out of me. I stared back at Hero, his big brown eyes boring into me with an intensity I'd never seen before. Did I want him? Christ, of course I wanted him, more than I'd ever wanted anyone or anything in my entire life. But something was still holding me back from taking that final step. Call it old-fashioned Scottish prudishness or whatever, but I wanted our first time to be really special. Not just a frenzied shag squeezed in between studying and eating microwaved meals. Hero, I began, reaching out to cup his flushed cheek. You know I want you, babe. Bloody hell, I've never wanted anyone or anything more. He blinked up at me, that wee face a picture of earnest longing. I very nearly caved right then and there. Clearing my throat, I went on. But I also want our first time to be perfect, you know? No rushing, no holding back. Just me and you, completely alone and able to take our time. I leaned in closer, brushing my lips against his ear, able to make you moan and whimper and cry out my name over and over, all night long if you want. A shudder coursed through Hero's slender frame. I smirked, knowing I had his full, undivided attention now. Why don't we go for a wee trip this weekend? I purred, nipping at his earlobe. Get a hotel room nice and private-like. Make a whole weekend of it, just you and me. Hero gulped audibly, pupils blown wide with naked desire. Why yes, call 'em, whatever you want. I want that too, so badly. Good lad, I growled, claiming his lips in another searing kiss as the telly droned on, long forgotten. That weekend couldn't come soon enough. I'd booked us a swanky hotel room, ready to make good on my promise to Hyrule. The anticipation was damn near killing me, picturing his beautiful wee body trembling beneath mine, imagining the sounds he'd make when I finally slid inside him. I tried my best to act casual as we checked into the hotel, but Hyrule clearly knew what was coming. His cheeks were flushed, eyes sparkling with a mixture of excitement and nerves. As soon as the hotel room door clicked shut behind us, he was on me like a wildcat. Hero shoved me back against the door, our lips crashing together in a flurry of teeth and tongues. I groaned into his mouth, feeling that wee body grinding shamelessly against mine. His clever fingers made short work of my shirt buttons, pushing the fabric aside to roam across my hairy chest. Call him. I need you so badly, he whimpered between sloppy kisses. Please, I can't wait any longer. Christ, hearing him beg like that nearly made me burst right there. I scooped Hyrule up into my arms, our mouths still furiously attacking one another, and carried him towards the massive bed. Lowering him down onto the plush comforter, I broke the kiss just long enough to drink in the sight before me. Hyrule splayed out with cheeks flushed and hair mussed, his chest heaving beneath that silk shirt as he stared up at me with blatant desire. You sure about this, babe? I rasped out one last time, giving him an out if he wanted it. Hyrule quickly nodded, reaching up to tug me back down into another searing kiss. That was all the answer I needed. Making love to Hero that first time was like a religious experience. Every heated kiss, every feverish caress, every breathless moan, it all seared itself into my brain for eternal memory. The way his slender body trembled and arched beneath me as I finally pushed inside him. The desperate whimpers that turned to cries of ecstasy once I started moving. The feeling of his fingernails raking down my back, urging me harder, deeper. We went at it for what felt like hours, lost in the throes of passion. Hyrule was incredible, so hot and tight yet taking every brutal thrust. I gave him like a pro, and those wee noises he made, obscene, beautiful music to my ears. At one point I flipped him over, pounding into his pert little R's from behind while he screamed my name over and over into the mattress. Those milky thighs kept quivering, threatening to give out from the sheer intensity of it all. I'll never forget the sight of him in that moment, hair wild and sweat-soaked, back bowed in rapture. When he finally peaked with a garbled shout, clamping down delectably around my thick shaft, I followed right over that edge into sweet oblivion. We collapsed in a sweaty, panting heap, clinging to each other in the aftermath. I peppered Hero's face with kisses, delirious with endorphins. Christ, you're amazing, babe. That was... I know he cut me off breathlessly, managing a satisfied little smile. We're definitely doing that again before we leave. And do it again we did, multiple times in fact. That wee hotel room became our own private den of debauchery all weekend. We ordered room service, took long soaks in the massive tub, then retired right back to the bed for another marathon shag session. By the time we checked out, my back was striped with scratches and my thighs were quivering. It was totally worth it if you ask me. After that weekend, Hero and I were more inseparable than ever before. That dirty weekend away was just the start for me and Hiro. From then on, we were like a couple of randy teenagers, shagging every chance we got and never seeming to get enough of each other. Back in our dorm room, the paper-thin walls didn't do much for privacy, but that didn't stop us from getting downright vociferous with our lovemaking whenever we had the place to ourselves. I made sure the rugby lads down the hall got an earful of Hero's desperate cries and whimpers on a regular basis. "Keep it down over there, McGregor," they'd holler through the walls, pounding on the drywall for emphasis. In response, I'd simply redouble my efforts, pounding into Hiro even harder until he was sobbing my name over and over. We also made frequent use of the communal shower rooms after hours. Many's the night I had that gorgeous little fox pinned against the tiled wall, relentlessly driving into his tight pucker as the spray sluiced over our writhing bodies. Hiro loved it when I'd gag him with my spare hand to muffle those wanton moans. Even mundane study sessions devolved into heavy petting and heated groping more often than not. I'd sit there pretending to read while Hiro studiously bobbed beneath my kilt, swallowing my thick Scottish cock to the root over and over. My fingers would tangle in his silky hair, hips bucking shamelessly as I flooded that greedy little mouth. And through it all, against all odds, our bond just grew stronger and stronger. The shagging was amazing and utterly mind-blowing, if I'm honest. But it was the smaller moments, the tender intimacies between romps, that really made me fall arse over tacketa for Hiro. As insatiable as our sexual appetites were, Hiro and I still made time for quieter, more romantic moments too. In fact, those always ended up meaning just as much to me as the shagging itself. Take, for instance, the mornings after an extra rambunctious romp, when we'd lounge around in our cramped dorm room completely starkers. I'd brew up a pot of thick, rich tea while Hiro whipped up some fancy Japanese breakfast. Then we'd just sit there together, eating and sipping our drinks in comfortable silence with the sheets pooled around our waist. Hiro looked so bloody gorgeous in those moments. His jet black hair all mussed, golden skin glowing from our vigorous activities the night before. Every now and then he'd catch me staring and flash that sly, knowing grin. "See something you like, Callum?" "You already know the answer to that one, babe." I'd rumble back with a wink, pulling him in for a long, lingering kiss that still tasted of bergamot and passion. Other times I'd wake before him and simply watch Hiro slumbering peacefully beside me. He always looked so blissfully angelic when unconscious, those lush lips parted slightly and those sooty lashes fanning across his porcelain cheeks. My fierce, fiery lover turned into a total lamb in his sleep. I'd trace the curve of that delicate jaw with a callous fingertip, marveling at how perfectly we seemed to complement one another, despite our differences, like two improbable puzzle pieces, joined together at long last. He was my other half, knew it down to my very marrow. Those stolen moments of tenderness made me realize something important, something that terrified yet electrified me all at once. I was falling harder and harder for Hiro with each passing day. Maybe even loved him. My initial prejudices and hang-ups be damned. Of course, our blissful little bubble couldn't last forever. Reality came crashing back in a big way during the spring semester. It started small at first. The odd, sneered remark or sideways glance from a passerby whenever Hiro and I walked across campus hand in hand. We did our best to ignore the idiots, but their sneers and muttered slurs gradually grew more and more brazen. Then came the nasty rumor mill courtesy of some of the narrow-minded wanks on my rugby team. Suddenly, everyone was gossiping about the big Scottish poofter shagging the wee Asian twink. I earned myself a few cruel nicknames that made my blood boil every time I heard them. But the worst of it came from my own bloody family, believe it or not. Like a lot of working-class Scottish blokes, my dad and uncles all had some pretty antiquated, homophobic views. When word finally got around about my relationship with Hiro, the vitriol really started flying. "You're a disgrace to the family name. Call him." My day raged during one particularly ugly phone call. letting some wee oriental rug muncher turn ya from a real man. I'll never forget the hurt look on Hero's face as he overheard that vicious tirade. The poor little guy already struggled enough with feelings of inadequacy and not being manly enough for me. Hearing my own dad spew such hateful shite surely didn't help matters. For the first time since that magical hotel weekend, I started to doubt whether Hiro and I could really make this work long term. The judgments and bigotry started weighing me down like a crushing boulder on my back. I put on a brave face for my lover's sake, but truth was, I didn't know how much more of the cruelty I could take before it finally broke me or broke us. All the hatred and judgment from others really started messing with my head after a while. We did my damnedest to stay strong, to keep being the protector Hiro needed in the face of such bigotry, but it was like a relentless onslaught, chipping away at my resolve bit by bit. My own insecurities started bubbling up too. What if my idea was right? What if this relationship was making me less of a man, perverting me from my true straight, Scottish self? I'd never felt so bloody confused and torn in my entire life. It all came to a head one night after an epically shit day. I'd spent the afternoon getting ridiculed by my teammates, followed by a blistering phone call where my uncle called me a Nancy boy poof and said I'd become a disappointment to the family. By the time I returned to the dorm, I was a raging, foul-tempered mess desperate for a release. Hiro must have sensed something was badly off because he didn't even get a chance to speak before I was on him, claiming that gorgeous little mouth in a bruising, domineering kiss. I fucked him mercilessly that evening, taking out all my anger and self-loathing on his poor body. There was nothing gentle or tender about it this time. Just me rutting away savagely like a rabid animal while he whimpered and cried out in a delicious mixture of pain and pleasure. Afterwards we lay spent and unmoving, Hiro cradled in my arms with his back marred by fresh claw marks and love bites. A heavy, deafening silence hung over us. That's when he finally found his voice, soft and tremulous. "C-column, did I do something wrong tonight?" Hearing the wounded confusion in his words damn near broke me in two right then and there. Hiro's quiet, trembling words cut straight through me like a dagger. Did he do something wrong? Christ, of course he didn't. He was the victim here, the one who'd endured my blind rage and selfish brutality despite being utterly blameless. As I gazed down at his battered, bruised form cradled in my arms, a tidal wave of shame and self-loathing crashed over me all at once. What kind of worthless, monstrous bastard had I become, taking out all my inner demons on the one person I loved most in this world? No, babe, you didn't do anything wrong, I managed to choke out, fighting back the hot sting of tears. It's me. I'm the one who bloody mucked it all up. Again, Hiro tried feebly to protest, to absolve me of any wrongdoing as always. But I stopped him with a finger to those plump, well-ravaged lips. Don't try and spare me, love. I was a right fucking animal tonight. Didn't have any right treating you like that, no matter how shite my day was. I tucked him in closer, warding off a bone-deep shudder. Truth is, all this shite with my family and the lads, it's fucking with my head something fierce. Got me doubting whether this was all a big mistake from the start. Hiro immediately tensed in my embrace, those big soulful eyes going wide and stricken with hurt. C-column, please don't say that. I thought we were. His words dissolved into a hiccuping sob as realization dawned. I scrambled to explain, to reassure him even as my own doubts raged violently. Babe, no. No mistakes, I swear it. You've made me happier than I ever thought possible, it's just. I paused, swallowing hard around the lump in my throat. I'm scared, Hiro. Scared of losing you over this. Of losing meself and all the hatred. A single shining tear traced its way down my lover's porcelain cheek as we clung together, utterly lost. Hiro and I stayed up the entire night, just holding each other close and letting all the pain and doubts bleed out between us. I'll never forget the way he looked up at me by the pale moonlight, eyes glistening yet determined. Callum, my love, you cannot let the ignorance of others poison what we have. His delicate fingers traced along the line of my jaw. This, you and I together, it is far too precious for that. I felt a lump forming in my throat as he continued. Those cruel people, they do not understand the depth of our bond. They see only surfaces, appearances. We know the truth. Lowering his head, Hiro placed a soft, reverent kiss over my thundering heart. Our love lives here, in this place they cannot even conceive of. It transcends foolish definitions and stigmas. His words unlocked something deep within me, then primal, almost spiritual recognition of how right he was. This went far beyond societal labels or others' prejudices. What Hiro and I shared emerged from the very marrow of our beings, destined to join from the moment we drew our first breaths. Pulling my beautiful soulmate up, I captured those plump lips in a searing, curative kiss. A kiss that pledged my allegiance and reaffirmed the sacred vows we'd never spoken aloud yet bounded us all the same. Hiro melted into my embrace with a shuddering sigh, their compact form molding once more to every lush, rugged plane of mine. When we finally parted, I tucked a stray, ebony wisp of hair behind his ear. "You're right, babe, you're absolutely right. They'll never understand, but I don't care anymore, not one bloody bit." A radiant, watery smile bloomed across Hiro's face, then as I slanted my mouth over his once more, rekindling the eternal fire between us. No matter what anybody said or did, I was his, and he was mine. Forever and always, until the stars burned out. After that long, soul-bearing night, something inside me underwent a seismic shift, as if the final tattered remnants of doubt and insecurity had been permanently exorcised, allowing the true essence of my love for Hiro to blaze forth undaunted. From that point on, I gave zero fucks what anyone else thought or said about us. The naysayers, the bigots, the cruel voices forever nattering on about how unnatural and wrong we were. I simply tuned them all out. White noise drowned beneath the roar of my all-consuming devotion. Because at the end of every day, every hurtful remark or hostile glare, I had Hiro's warm, pliant body tucked against mine yet again, had the sanctuary of his embrace to return to, a heaven forged from our mingled breath, entwined limbs. He was my home, my refuge from the ignorance of the world outside, and I was his. We fell even deeper into that cocoon in the weeks that followed, if such a thing were possible. The shagging grew more intense, the connection between us thickening like velveteen cords that could never again be severed. Murmurs of forever and eternity fell frequently from our swollen lips, binding our spirits as surely as any ceremonial vow. I'll never forget the night it finally bubbled over, all that incandescent, incalculable emotion burning to be unleashed properly. We just made devastating, primal love, the kind that leaves your bones quaking and every inch of skin branded by your lover's scorching touch. Hiro lay amid the sweat-damp rumple of sheets, loose hair a raven spill over the pillows and kiss-bruised lips, still parted in a gasp. That's when the words tumbled out, raw and blazing with truth. "I love you, Hiro. Christ, I love you so bloody much." My soulmate's eyes flared wide in the darkness, hands flying up to cradle my face as I pressed scorching kisses to every inch of velvet skin I could reach. "I love you too, Callum, always and forever, my heart." The bedroom dissolved into a hazy eternity after that, our voices entwining in breathless chants and benedictions of pure, unconditional worship. Years later, whenever I look back on that pivotal night, when Hiro and I finally let those three powerful words soar free, it still kindles in warmth in my chest like a banked fire, a glow that could never be extinguished, no matter how blustering the gales of ignorance and hatred raged around us. Because in that heated moment of consecration, the rest of the world and all its cruel judgments ceased to exist entirely. There was only Hiro and I, tangled up in a sublime union of flesh and soul, two puzzle pieces finally slotted into their predestined grooves after an eternity of drifting in isolation. That night stretched into innumerable blissful days and nights that followed, an endless revel of mingled breath and tangled limbs, of consuming passion, ultimately mellowing into a profound, abiding peace. Like a well-worn stone in a riverbed, my love for Hiro was absolutely elemental, shaped by the most ancient and immutable forces. Somewhere in the hazy, lust-addled blur, we exchanged rings and legally bound ourselves together before family and whatever friends remained after the bigoted shunning. Though truthfully, those ceremonial trappings were mere formalities compared to the vows our raptured bodies made anew every eve, worshiping at the sacred altar of our joined spirits. Now, so many years down the winding tracks of life, it's moments like this that I cherish most. Hiro's slender form draped across my lap as we lounged by the fireplace in our secluded beach cottage. Firelight glinting off the thick platinum band on his finger as his delicate hand rests atop my work-roughened one. The faint laugh lines etched at the corners of those ageless, exotic eyes crinkling with pure contentment as I brush an errant lock of silver-streaked hair from his brow. In these quiet interludes, I can feel the entire cosmos distilled into Hero's soft exhales, his steady pulse thrumming against my calloused palm, a living metronome keeping sublime time as we bask together in the radiant afterglow, knowing our bond has long since transcended the mortal plane. Eternal, infinite, inviolable. This is the truth mere words could never hope to encompass, yet my heart understands with perfect clarity. We are soulmates, loves, hasta la vista,